does Vermont Federal Credit Union allow their MRBs to deposit cash at their branches? Let's start talking about Vermont Federal Credit Union. And Liz, do you allow marijuana businesses to deposit cash in branch?
We do allow cannabis businesses to deposit in all of our branches. We have set some restrictions around that. At the very beginning of our program, we said absolutely not, and we partnered with Imperial. Vermont's really small, obviously, so a lot of the businesses were really close to the branches, and they expressed some frustration that, you know, I'm 5 miles from a branch and I don't want to pay X amount of fees to have someone come pick up the cash for me when I feel comfortable enough to drive it to a branch. So we decided to allow the cash deposits in the branch. We tell members that if it's over a certain amount, they have to make an appointment with our branch to make sure that the branch is staffed. We require the deposit to be duly counted by 2 people in the branch. If the business does not make an appointment, we require the deposit to go through the night drop. So the branches can process the transaction the next morning at their convenience with 2 people.
All right. Well, as I said, you've got a bunch of questions waiting for you. So Stacy and Liz, do you want to kick it off talking a little bit about the program? Liz, can you give us a little bit more information about how you were involved? Yeah, we talked to you the other day kind of as a warm up to this, and gosh, you already have a lot of interesting stories, even though your program's been around since August, right?
Yeah, I think we launched in July, and our first our live date to open, you know, the seedling accounts, like Stacy had mentioned, was July 15th, and our first licensed business was August 8th. I laugh every time I say this. We anticipated 6 accounts to be opened for the year. That's what we anticipated.
What is the number now?
We are at 100 as of today. We are at 149 active accounts with 8 pending currently. And we have 116 of the seedling accounts. So 265 accounts in the program. And I'm happy to share that we hold about $8 million on deposit. So they bring in a lot of really, really high balances.
That's fantastic. I think the number 8 there came up multiple times. August 8th was your first account, and $8 million in
8 months.
In 8 months.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So I don't want to derail us. Yeah, do you want to give a little bit of detail about the program, how you came into this? And then, yeah, people are very interested to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I think what might be helpful, Liz, is to talk a little bit about how you entered the space. Like, what was the process that you went through to decide whether or not you were going to move from hemp into cannabis? I know that was kind of a process for you guys. And, you know, in building your program, what were some of the primary drivers and decisions that you made along the way?
Yeah, absolutely. So we honestly, the biggest thing for us was finding a platform to support cannabis banking. And my manager, the VP, she stumbled across Green Check. That was really the deciding factor with the cannabis program. You know, the driving reason behind the program, like I stated earlier, was retaining the existing members that were entering the industry, being able to support the new members in the community, of course, fee revenue opportunities, building the deposits, and just remaining competitive with the financial institutions that were in the cannabis banking field at the time, or still are. There's one currently. Some of our biggest challenges, to be honest, have turned into our biggest successes. Of course, the rate of growth was a challenge, but is obviously a success. Like I said, we anticipated only 6 accounts, but we are at total 265 in the program. We have onboarded 3 people. So we have 3 of us that are actively in the cannabis program. working. We just recently hired our third person about 2 weeks ago. And yeah, just, like I said, the finding the right platform was the biggest thing with monitoring, because we knew that was going to be a big piece in staying in compliance.
That's great. So 3 people and 265 accounts is about 88 cannabis businesses per FTE, which is very much in line with what we see across our client base, which is somewhere between 60 and 80 cannabis businesses. So you're doing a great job with that higher end number.
88, 8 months, 8 million. What other eights do you have for?
Oh, wow.
This actually goes along with that. Just to interject, what does your employee training look like to support cannabis banking when you're onboarding new employees? So, this is perfect. You're doing this now. How do you bring someone up to speed on something that financial institutions have actively avoided for years and years?
So when the employee gets to us, like after their onboarding, just with Vermont Federal in general, we start slow. We have a group inbox where all of our inquiries go to, which is an overflow of emails. So we start with that. We have the new employee start with that, get to know the just the terminology of the industry. There's a really great cannabis course that we have new employees take. It's, again, just the terminology is really helpful, and the history behind cannabis and marijuana and all of that. And then we start with the seedling accounts. So the new employee would open up the seedling accounts first before the full cannabis marijuana accounts.
I'll sort of add to that, Liz, that a lot of our financial institutions will actually use our bootcamp. So what we're doing here today is a great introduction to the terminology and the regulations that follow. And we'll talk a little bit at the end of the session about the ACBP certification that Paul teaches through Bankers Web. And that's another avenue for employees to get trained on cannabis banking. So let's talk a little bit about challenges, right? We mentioned earlier in our bootcamp that you got an opportunity to consider filing a suspicious activity report, a priority around some shenanigans that were happening with one of your clients. Care to share a little bit about that story?
Yeah, happy to share a little bit about that story. So like I had said, we had our first business that had negative news article. And this happened last month. It came to our attention. So we're still kind of working through what that process is going to look like as these come up more, as our program is growing, and what actions we want to take. As I said to Paul and Stacy yesterday, this incident was kind of the type of incident that just kind of makes you put your palm right to your forehead, like, why, and was the incident serious? Yes, of course it was, but we didn't feel like they were putting us out of compliance or risk in any way. They paid their fees, they dealt with the state, and had their license suspended for a bit. I feel like we're lucky in the sense that Vermont is so involved in monitoring that it takes some stress off of us a little bit. And at the end of the day, if the state is cool with the business still operating, then at some point, so are we. It's kind of the motto, how we took it.
That's a good point.
What was the response from your examiner? I have to assume that you brought it up and shared it with them. What was their thought?
At first they laughed based on what happened. And then ensured that we filed that SAR. So just making sure that we're documenting, and they had suggested, and actually Stacy did too, changing the risk rating of the account, just so we're monitoring just a little bit more and being, aware of the activity more than what we maybe were prior.
I know that's always a concern is, well, what happens if one of our marijuana businesses does something bad, or are they going to pull our charter? Are we going to be in trouble? But yeah, we've seen that we don't have that same knee-jerk reaction that people might imagine. Things happen. Things happen with normal accounts, and
Absolutely.
you have your policies and procedures and you'll follow them, and just like you would for anything else.
Absolutely.
How about, do you want to talk a little bit about your marketing and fee strategy? I think you guys are doing some really unique and awesome things around new businesses and social equity and that sort of thing. So share as much as you're comfortable with, but I'd love to hear about your pricing strategy.
Yeah, so our fee schedule, we took the approach that we're here to help these businesses. We know starting a business, especially a new business in the cannabis field, is challenging and very expensive to begin with. So we took a hybrid fee schedule route. So I can talk a little bit about what, I think I saw one question that was asking what we are charging. I'll give an example. I'll back up a little bit. We charge per license type and per tier. So for example, a tier 1 cultivator, our posted fee is $100 per month. Our hybrid fee schedule is half of the posted fee plus 1% of any deposits that they had during that month and never exceeding that posted fee. So I tell members all the time, budget that posted fee depending on your license type and your tier. However, we have the hybrid fee schedule. So if they are an outdoor tier 1 cultivator, Vermont gets cold, they're not doing a lot of business in the wintertime. So their fee that month is just going to be half of the posted fee plus 1% of any deposits if they have any. If they don't have any deposits, it's just going to be $50 for the month. On top of that, we have a $500 application fee at the time that the marijuana account is opened or converted. So at that time, there's $500 due. And then the monthly fees, they don't start actually 3 months until 3 months after the account is open. So we have a free 3-month, no fee setup, unless they have a deposit from a sale during that time. So whichever comes first, either the 3-month mark or their deposit from a sale.
And going into this, we have several questions which are largely similar, but what kind of services do you offer? Do you offer all services such as Visa debit cards, loans, wires, treasury services such as wire, remote deposit capture, ACH origination, merchant services? Do you require them to use armored cars? Well, we talked about that, but just broadly, that's a very common question. What are the kinds of services that you provide? I did take the screenshot of your site because I think you do a great job up front of saying like, here's what we do.
Yeah.
But maybe it's easier to say, well, one, I know everybody wants to know if you provide a business debit card. And then also, maybe it's easier to say, is there anything that you would not provide to a regular small business at this point?
Yes, we do provide business debit cards. We allow wire transactions. It has come to attention that we can't allow foreign wire transactions currently. ACHs we allow, online banking, checks, remote deposit capture, so mobile check deposit. We are not allowing lending at this time. We just don't have a program set in place yet. And the other thing that we're currently looking into, because we had some interest about it, is interest-bearing accounts. So that's been a conversation the last 2 weeks actually about what that may look like.
Stacy, is that something you see across the other financial institutions? Is that kind of like the table stakes of cannabis banking now? Does that really set Vermont Federal as, very, very unique?
I think that ACH and wire, checks, bill payments, those are all table stakes. Business debit card is less prevalent. The institutions that offer business debit card need to feel comfortable with it, and some of them are afraid of the operating rules at the MasterCard and Visa level that say, you can't use our products for purchasing marijuana. And what I always like to kind of bring that back to is they're not using it for purchasing marijuana products, and you can put that in the debit card agreement, they're using it to go to Staples to buy paper, and they're using it to buy ink for the printers and lunch for the team, right? As long as they're using the cards for those things, it's just like any other business expense. It doesn't say in those operating rules that you can't give the card to a cannabis business, but there are some institutions that are just not, they're just not comfortable yet in that world. But I would say that if I had to guess, probably about a third of our institutions are offering business debit card.
And it's a real need, and it's really
Absolutely.
actually attractive if you're trying to bring people to your institution from others. So, Liz, how did y'all get comfortable doing that, offering business debit cards? What are the controls you put in place to make sure that's not being used for the purchase of marijuana?
So one of our due diligence pieces is we monitor all debit card transactions. It's a lot, definitely, but that's why we have 3 of us that are doing it. So one of the bankers, she pulls a report and she looks at all of the debit card transactions. And if there's something that she can't figure out, we reach out to the member and just ask the question, where was your debit card used? And just looking for some clarification.
And would you shut down the debit card if they had in fact used it for marijuana purchase?
We would, because that would be breaking the agreement that they signed.
Okay, so that's another risk mitigation tool, is that it's in your agreement that they can only use it for non-marijuana purchases. What about around limits? Do you use any different limits for the cannabis businesses than you would for your standard commercial customers?
No, all of our limits are the same across the board.
Awesome.
This kind of dovetails into that as well. These two questions are very similar. The first one is, Liz mentioned they onboarded 3 bankers for cannabis. Does that include BSA AML professionals that are handling due diligence and monitoring? Who works the alerts in GreenCheck? And the kind of follow-up to that is, do those 3 people handle compliance for the entire financial institution, or is it 3 people exclusively handling marijuana businesses?
So we have our cannabis program in the risk and compliance department. So there's myself and 2 bankers who are opening up the accounts. I'm not really doing as much of the account opening anymore. And then we have our BSA AML coordinator, who is not really tied to the cannabis piece of it. So she's separate. Yeah, does that answer that question? Sorry.
I think so.
Yeah,
they'll
okay.
probably chime in if it didn't.
Okay.
Well, this is another question that kind of goes along with that. So your team does the monitoring. Do you also onboard the customers and do those sales and that outreach? Are accounts opened through branches? Like, I guess the question is broadly, how do you reach out to the community? How do you bring people in? What role do the branches play in that?
So all of the account openings are within our department. So the branches are not opening any of the accounts. So we have 2 business banking associates, and they are the ones opening up the accounts. I am more just making sure that we're in compliance. I'm the one that's in GreenCheck 100% of my day. We have not had to outreach for business. We are very lucky in that standpoint. All of the businesses are in their own community and they all talk. We have had great referrals from all of the businesses. There's only one other institution in Vermont that is banking cannabis, so it's also an advantage for us. And they are actually merging with a credit union that stopped their applications. So that, again, that's just a really huge perk for us. We're very lucky in that aspect. I am soon to be training one of the business banking associates in GreenCheck, because I can't handle 150 accounts on my own in GreenCheck for the monitoring, because that's my main focus. So just slowly cross training everybody to be able to do all of the duties.
So you talked about, you had this really explosive growth. There was a question, how long did it take to build your program? So you really expanded very, very quickly, but how long did it get you to the point where you were ready to go?
I would say actively 5 months.
Okay. Stacy, is that generally what we're seeing now across the folks that are coming in?
Yeah, that's pretty typical. It usually takes us about 30 or 45 days to get them prepared for the board decision, going through that risk and financial and operational piece there to make sure all the education and building pieces are done. And then, at that point, what we did with Vermont Federal was, we turned around and implemented the software and got the training done and some questionnaires built, and Liz and Donna and their team did a great job getting everything ready and getting the core system stuff integrated. So yeah, 4 to 6 months is a good time frame for getting it launched from inception of idea to being ready for the market.
And so Liz, there's a follow-up to that. How long does the implementation process take for Green Check? I'm not entirely sure what they mean here. I'm not sure if it means Green Check as a consulting partner that helps build the program, or if they're talking very specifically about connecting Green Check to your core system. So I'm afraid I don't really know what they're asking.
Yeah, I think we kind of answered that in the last question, that 30 to 45 days to get to the board process, and then another chunk of time about, it depends on the institution and what you have available for resources. We've done implementations of the Green Check software itself. Once the decision has been made to move forward with the program, we've done implementations in as short as 3 weeks. We've also done them that have taken months because the institution was in the middle of other projects and didn't have resources and so on. But the process itself to get the software up and going is pretty quick. And I think, Liz, your team, going back to your, would you say 5 months, something like that? I mean, if
Yeah,
the first 2 months was getting to the board, then it was, another 2 to 3 months for the rest of it.
exactly.
Did you, well, you've had incredible growth. It wasn't what you expected, but this question is, did your institution limit MRB concentration and exposure when the program began? Did you define any kind of MRBs that you would not onboard? Was there anywhere the risk was just not one you were willing to pick up?
We did not set any limits to that, no.
And you had CBD accounts before and hemp accounts before. How were you monitoring those? Was it the spreadsheet method? Was it, how did you stay on top of the non-marijuana cannabis businesses you had?
There probably wasn't a lot of monitoring as there should be. Donna in our risk and compliance, she's the VP of risk and compliance. She took that on herself to monitor with probably a spreadsheet, yes, and questionnaires. Like I said, we only have less than 10, so it hasn't gotten to the point where we felt like we needed more monitoring, I guess, than beyond that.
We have 2 more questions. How many on average SARs do you file each month? At least 1 per marijuana business. Or no, they're staggered out. So do you have a sense of how many SARs specific to marijuana you file a month?
Yeah, I would, specifically to the cannabis accounts, I would say between 30 and 40 on average.
And how often do your clients inquire about cannabis loans? I know you said you don't offer them, but do you get a lot of inquiries?
We do get a lot of inquiries, yes. We do.
Is there a number you're going to hit when you have like 50 requests, you'll start lending just to see?
Right, that would be really nice. There are definitely conversations that are happening all the time about what it would look like if we offered lending. But yeah, unfortunately, there is a lot of people that do ask.
Okay.
Sort of along those same lines, what types of loans are they asking for? Are they asking for real estate or equipment financing, short-term?
The majority of them are, small build up loans. They're just looking for some extra cash to be able to build up their business.
Okay.
I have heard from some cannabis businesses, they're like, I just need $10,000 or $25,000.
That's exactly it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's, they're not necessarily asking for $10 million. They just want to be able to make their payroll, right?
Right.
Yeah, we have seen some institutions do unsecured line of credits for like 50 or 100,000, just to give them that credit facility that most small businesses would probably use a credit card for those big purchases, that sort of thing. And because these businesses have challenges getting credit cards, just having that line of credit is super important to help them through those pinch points.
So folks, we do have a couple of minutes. If there are any more questions, please pop them in. Thank you to everybody who asked a question. We had 30 questions, which is great. But in the meantime, there are definitely things to continue to talk about. So keys to program success. Stacy, take it away.
Yeah, so I think some of these we can relate back to Liz's and Vermont Federal's story, but what we see across our client base as the keys to a successful program is, first of all, choose a champion. Somebody has to be the person on the team that is taking ownership of the cannabis program, making sure that reporting is done, making sure that folks are coordinated and all of that. So typically we see this either on the business development side or on the compliance side. So in the case of your team, Liz, would you consider Donna your champion?
Absolutely, yeah.
And her role at the institution is?
VP of Risk and Compliance.
Okay. I've also seen innovation officers be involved as well. Like, hey, let's do something cool and innovative. We also need to have clearly defined goals. Now, I remember working with your team, Liz, that Harry, your CFO, had very specific goals about what he wanted for deposits from the program. And I think there was even a friendly bet that he didn't think that number was going to be hit in the 5-year plan. And I think you guys hit that in like 3 months, right? The goals for the program, which was amazing. But make sure that you identify what those goals are, and everybody knows what you're going after. Are you going after deposits? Are you going after fee revenue? Are you going after organic growth? What are those things that are driving this program? And I would say be bold about being cannabis friendly. The institutions that we work with that have the greatest success are the ones that have the website page that says, hey, we're cannabis friendly. They're the ones that create a unique brand. We have a credit union in Michigan that has a brand called Envy, and they've gone out and done a logo and marketing materials. Or we have a bank in Maryland that has been all over LinkedIn, like, hey, come see us. We are commercial cannabis banking specialists, right? So be bold and let the world know, and the word of mouth and the referrals will come along with that once you bring your clients on board. And then make sure that you've got that regular reporting. We talked about it a little bit under the operation structure, but share the successes. Let folks know that the team brought in, $8 million in deposits. And I'll tell you, Liz, one of the things we talk about is this is a great opportunity for the compliance team to participate instead of just being the folks that, say you can't do that or you have to disclose this. It gives the compliance team an opportunity to participate in bringing in revenue for the company and being a profit center as well.
You're not the Department of No, you're the Department of Yes.
Exactly.
All right, Paul, you want to talk a little bit about training?
Sure. So this is just the last piece that I want to throw out there. We know from the FinCEN guidance that understanding the normal and expected activities of these businesses is crucial to understanding what you need to look out for. So with Bankers Web, we've put together an 8-session course called the Accredited Cannabis Banking Professional. Imagine this boot camp that's stretched out over 8 hours, and we still don't have enough time to fill in all the content we would want to. So just think about what's in the boot camp and expanding every single one of those slides. At the end of it, there is an exam and you can get a credential if you pass. And there is a significant discount code available. All you have to do is reach out to us and we'd be glad to help you out there. This is a neat question that just popped up. So I'll ask this in 1 second. Please stay connected with us. On the left, you'll see our information both as Greencheck and Stacy and I. We're both very active on LinkedIn, so feel free to private message us there if you have anything. Liz, do you want to talk a little bit about getting in touch with Vermont Federal Credit Union, how to get in touch with you potentially?
Yeah, absolutely. So that Cannabis Banking at vermontfederal.org is our group inbox that's monitored every single day. And then there's my personal work email that I am happy to answer any questions that anybody has or set up a phone call. And I am also on LinkedIn, so feel free to message me there.
Okay. So this very last question, Liz, are there any limitations that you've run into on what you can use in advertising? Are there pictures you can't use? So you have a page that talks about cannabis banking. Are there any kind of restrictions on what you can put there?
We just decided to go the route of not having pictures of marijuana on our page. We haven't actually marketed, we have our page, but marketing doesn't market out that we are cannabis friendly. I think the main reason is we just haven't had to quite yet. So just keeping it kind of neutral, I guess is a good word to use.
I'm not aware of any regulatory restrictions.
Me either. No, that was just a Vermont Federal choice.
Yeah, I would, there are two of our institutions, Canna First Financial out of Mississippi and the CFG Bank out of Maryland. And they both use pictures of cannabis in their advertising. One is more subtle than the other. So the Southern boys are a little more conservative, and it's if you know what you're looking for, that the picture is taken in a cultivation facility, but the background is a little blurry, so it just looks like plants. Whereas the other institution is very clearly like they have cannabis like manufacturers and cultivators, and they have really gone full forward to say, hey, we understand cannabis and we're going to show you through our advertising that we're not afraid to talk cannabis. So it all depends on risk tolerance and comfort level. But I would agree with both of you that I'm not aware of any restrictions, although I will put the little caveat there that if you're using social media, some platforms will scan for pictures of cannabis leaves or drug paraphernalia, and they will flag your account accordingly. So that could be a little bit of a bugaboo for you if you're putting that sort of advertising on social media.
All right, well, everybody, I know that asking folks to give us 2.5 hours to talk about cannabis banking is no small ask. Liz, I know that, we know what you do every day in terms of keeping on top of your compliance obligations. So we're very thankful you're willing to share this time with us and share your insights. It's so valuable to get it from the people actually doing it every day. So thank you so much. Really can't thank you. And
all right.
We've answered all the questions. So with that, I would say happy 420, everybody. Go look at your transaction activity, see if you see any interesting spikes today and for the rest of the week. And please come and see us at any of our other webinars. We have lots of them and they're all free. So don't hesitate to sign up.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Thanks, Stacy. Have a great day, folks.
Bye.